And here in the U.S. tonight, we remember a country music legend, celebrating Loretta Lynn. Lynn's family revealing she died at the age of 90 at her ranch in Tennessee, the daughter of a Kentucky coal miner. It was that song that helped define a career.
Loretta Lynn was more than a country music legend. She was an icon woven into the fabric of American life. To the world, she was the coal miner's daughter, a woman who turned hardship into melody and heartbreak into timeless ballads. Her songs carried truth, grit, and fire. But when she passed, her family uncovered something no song could have prepared them for. Deep within her Tennessee home, tucked behind trophies, instruments, and memories, they found a closet. Not just any closet, a hidden trove that would change everything they thought they knew about her. The day Loretta's family gathered to sort through her belongings was drenched in grief. Her ranch, once alive with the hum of voices, now felt hollow. Every corner was a shrine to her journey, platinum records glinting in the hallway, photographs capturing decades of triumph, even kitchen shelves lined with her handwritten recipes. The house seemed to breathe her presence, yet without her voice, it felt unbearably still. As her children moved carefully from room to room, honoring each keepsake, one quiet corner drew their attention. A small wooden door, nearly blending with the wall, stood untouched. For years it had gone unnoticed, a detail lost amid the grandeur of her home. Now it demanded attention. Loretta's home wasn't just a monument to fame. It was warm and lived in, filled with the clutter of ordinary family life alongside the glitter of show business. Guests often marveled at her awards or her guitars hung proudly in the music room. But the family knew there were corners of the house she kept private. One closet in particular seemed deliberately ignored, as though time itself had forgotten it existed. Its frame was dustier than the rest of the hallway, its lock tarnished. None of them recalled ever seeing it open, not even during their childhoods. It became clear this was no ordinary storage space. It was a mystery she had taken to her grave. Curiosity transformed into determination as the family tried to solve the riddle of the locked door. They scoured every possible hiding place, her vanity drawers, jewelry boxes, even old suitcases stored in the attic. Nothing fits the delicate lock. Hours stretched on until one granddaughter opened a guitar case lined with faded velvet. Nestled in the stitching was a brass key, small and worn from use. It slipped into the lock with hesitant ease, and with a soft but weighty click, the closet surrendered its silence. The family braced themselves as the door creaked open for the first time in decades. Inside was not the chaos of forgotten belongings, but a space arranged with deliberate care. Boxes sat stacked neatly, their labels in Loretta's flowing handwriting. Manila envelopes tied with string were lined like soldiers on a shelf. Cassette tapes and spiral notebooks filled entire corners, each one meticulously preserved. It was not a storage room, it was a vault. Everything inside had been curated, not abandoned. It felt less like a closet and more like a confession, a room where Loretta had hidden the parts of herself that even fame couldn't touch. The air grew heavy. Whatever they had found wasn't meant for casual discovery. It was meant to be revealed only when she was gone. When the family stepped into the closet, their eyes darted to the organization that seemed almost unnatural for a space meant only for storage. Every box bore Loretta's handwriting, looping letters on faded masking tape that read like clues. Do not open. Personal. Save for later. Some envelopes were tied with string so tight it took scissors to free them, while stacks of cassette tapes were labeled not with album titles but with cryptic notes like "For Me Only" and "Not for Release." It was clear this wasn't a dumping ground for old memorabilia. It was a deliberate collection, a secret archive. Each item had been placed here with intent, as though Loretta knew one day her family would find it, but not until after she was gone. What struck them most was the care. Tissues lined the bottoms of the boxes. Fragile letters slipped into plastic sleeves to preserve their edges. Old photographs stacked in neat piles, as if they were preparing to tell a story in sequence. Nothing felt accidental. This wasn't a place for clutter or for things she no longer cared about. This was where she had placed the pieces of herself she could never fully share. The atmosphere inside was heavy, almost sacred. Her children exchanged nervous glances as if stepping deeper into the closet meant trespassing into a side of their mother that had remained deliberately hidden from them all their lives. Each discovery was another layer peeled back, each envelope a voice from the past waiting to be heard. At first they hesitated, almost reluctant to touch anything, but curiosity was stronger than caution. One box was marked simply, "Letters." Inside, the family found stacks of folded papers, yellowing at the edges, their creases worn from being read and reread. Some were in Loretta's unmistakable handwriting, but others belonged to people they didn't immediately recognize. The more they read, the more they realized this was no fan mail, no pile of business correspondence. These were intimate notes, personal exchanges stretching back decades. It was a revelation, and the beginning of something none of them were prepared to face. The letters opened a window into a world Loretta had never spoken of, even to those closest to her. They were not the carefully polished words of a star writing to admirers, but the raw confessions of a woman navigating a life far more complicated than her music ever revealed. Some were written on hotel stationery, others on torn notebook paper, and many were signed only with initials. Their tone was striking, emotional, unguarded, and at times trembling with regret. It was as though these letters were the only safe place she had to put her truths. One early letter spoke of loneliness on the road, of nights spent staring at ceilings in motel rooms after standing ovations. Another confessed how the demands of fame sometimes left her feeling like a stranger in her own home, a woman who belonged more to the stage than to her family. There were letters exchanged with someone she called Jay, words so tender and filled with trust that her children could hardly reconcile them with the guarded matriarch they had known. The language was careful, almost coded, but the weight of the emotions was unmistakable. Whoever Jay was, this person had been her lifeline, the one who heard her pain when no one else could. The more they read, the more questions emerged. How long had she been writing to this person? Why had she never mentioned them? And what did it mean that she had preserved every single letter, binding them together as if they were a secret diary written in two hands? Some notes hinted at private struggles, losses, and regrets never captured in her music. Others offered encouragement, urging her to keep going when she felt overwhelmed by the weight of being Loretta Lynn. These weren't just letters. They were confessions, apologies, and affirmations bound together across decades. Her family sat silently on the floor, surrounded by boxes and paper, absorbing the words with an awe that bordered on disbelief. They had known Loretta as a fierce and unshakable figure, a woman who stood tall through every storm. But here, in these letters, was the vulnerability she had hidden away. Each envelope they opened chipped away at the image they had carried, revealing not weakness, but depth. A reminder that even legends carry burdens too heavy to share in life. Among the boxes neatly stacked along the closet's back wall was one marked Photos. The family expected old publicity stills, perhaps faded Polaroids from tours, or snapshots with fans. But when the lid was lifted, what spilled out was something very different. These were not the carefully posed images meant for album covers or magazine spreads. These were private photographs, unguarded and deeply personal. Some were bent at the edges. Others still had developing lab stamps on the back, as if they had never been meant for public eyes. The first photo showed Loretta standing in front of her childhood home, dressed not in sequins, but in a plain cotton dress, her expression somber, almost burdened. Another revealed her sitting alone backstage, head bowed, a notebook in her lap, exhaustion etched across her face. More shocking were the images that seemed to tell stories no one in her family recognized. Loretta embracing strangers whose identities were a mystery, or photographs taken in places she had never spoken about visiting. There were candid shots of her laughing with a man not immediately known to the family, captured in intimate moments of ease that felt worlds away from the glamorous star they thought they knew. What unsettled them most were the photos that appeared almost staged, but not for fame, for memory. Pictures of Loretta with handwritten notes on the back. "Don't forget this night," or "For me only." One black and white photograph showed her sitting on the porch of a farmhouse, her children nearby, but her gaze turned toward the horizon, distant, distracted. On the back, in her unmistakable script, were 4 words: "Wish I was there." The photographs were haunting in their honesty. They showed a woman who was more than the polished performer on stage. They showed a mother torn between 2 worlds, a wife carrying unspoken burdens, and a woman searching for something, perhaps peace, that fame could never give her. Her family leafed through each one carefully, realizing they weren't just looking at pictures. They were looking at fragments of a life Loretta had deliberately hidden, a truth she had chosen to preserve only in images that no one was meant to see until she was gone. Deeper in the closet, under layers of envelopes and stacks of letters, the family discovered something that sent a shiver through them. Handwritten lyrics. Dozens of pages filled with her careful script, scribbles and corrections, some written on lined school paper, others on torn napkins or hotel notepads. Alongside them were cassette tapes, unmarked except for phrases like "hold back" or "never sing." These were songs Loretta had never recorded, never shared with her band, and never even hinted at in interviews. When they pressed play on one of the tapes, the room filled with her voice, familiar, yet startling in its intimacy. This was not the Loretta the world knew. Her tone was softer, rawer, almost fragile, stripped of studio polish or the confident delivery that had carried her through decades of fame. One song spoke of a midnight drive on an empty highway, headlights cutting through rain. It was a ballad of regret, hinting at a moment she wished she could change. Another told of a woman looking in the mirror, unable to recognize the face staring back. The lyrics carried no glamour, no sweetened ending, only honesty too sharp to release into the world. Her family listened in silence, overwhelmed by the vulnerability in every note. These weren't songs crafted for radio or audiences. They were confessions set to melody, a private release of feelings she had never allowed herself to speak aloud. The notebooks confirmed it, lines crossed out and rewritten, fragments of phrases that revealed her deepest wounds. One page read simply, "They want smiles, but I can't always give them." Another scrawled lyric whispered of betrayal, though no names were mentioned. The songs painted pictures of heartbreak, doubt, and the crushing weight of expectations. They showed Loretta as a woman grappling with the same storm she sang about, but this time stripped of the distance between art and truth. The discovery of these songs left the family shaken. They had known her as a performer who gave her all, no matter how heavy the day had been. But here was proof that behind the sparkle of her gowns and the strength of her voice was a woman who sometimes sang only for herself. Songs too raw, too personal, too dangerous perhaps, to ever let the world hear. They realized then that music had not only been her gift, it had also been her shield. As the family pieced together the letters, photographs, and unreleased songs, a picture emerged of a woman carrying more weight than anyone could have guessed. Loretta's public image had always been one of strength, fearless on stage, unflinching in her songs, and unbreakable in spirit. But the treasures hidden in that closet revealed another truth. She carried private burdens, regrets, and heartbreaks that she chose not to share with the world. These weren't the confessions of weakness, but of humanity. She had endured losses, doubts, and choices that never left her, and she bore them silently while still giving joy to millions. The family realized this was why she had curated the closet so carefully. It wasn't meant to be a spectacle. It was a safe place, a vault where she stored the fragments of herself that no one else could carry. Her songs hinted at these truths, but only here, in her secret writings and recordings, did the full picture come into focus. It was a reminder that behind every spotlight and every standing ovation, Loretta remained a woman who carried the same vulnerabilities, the same ghosts as anyone else. When the final box was opened and the last cassette tape played, her children and grandchildren sat together in silence. They had spent their lives seeing Loretta Lynn as the towering figure of country music, a matriarch who seemed untouchable. Yet what the closet revealed was not a legend, but a woman, a mother, a friend, a soul who had lived through love, regret, and pain, choosing to keep much of it hidden so that the world could continue to see her strength. The discovery didn't tarnish her legacy, it deepened it. They understood now that her ability to sing about struggle with such conviction came from places more personal than anyone knew. Her laughter, her warmth, and her defiance were made all the more powerful because they were born out of shadows she never shared. In leaving behind this hidden archive, she gave her family something more precious than awards or fame. She gave them the truth. They chose never to close the closet again. Instead, it remained open, a quiet memorial to the woman behind the legend. To the world, Loretta Lynn will forever be the coal miner's daughter, the voice that turned hardship into poetry and pain into song. But to her family, she became something even deeper, a reminder of resilience, of a woman who carried grief silently while giving joy to millions. Every hidden letter, every lyric, every secret song revealed the courage it took to keep smiling, to keep performing when the weight was unbearable. The closet became more than a space. It became a symbol of her humanity, her strength, and the legacy her loved ones will guard and carry forward.